Well, welcome to another one of my videos. So this is a very old video. It's 5 years old and it's not going to be a brilliant video in terms of there's not going to be a road test. I'm not even going to show the engine fired up later after the repair. It's a shame, but an Android phone did it 5 years ago. What is it? It's an S55 out of the F80 M3 and it had a massive problem. It had a knackered eccentric shaft. You can just see it in the back there, and it also had a knackered intake cam as well. So what you can see is all the parts laid out there. Right was the old, left is the new, and you can see a new intake cam, new eccentric shaft, and crucially, what's most important, a new Valvetronic motor, because actually that motor actually shorted out and it stopped the car starting. Then we stripped it and found all the problems. So what am I doing? Well, there's no music in this video, and because of copyright reasons, because this was 5 years ago, I had the radio in the background, so I've had to mute the entire video. So here we are, 14.5 minutes of me chunnering on. So what am I doing there? I'm just oiling. Obviously, it's self-explanatory, but if you're not a car person, you're not quite sure what I'm doing. I'm putting the intake camshaft in. I'm just oiling the cam carriers on the head. Obviously, you don't want to be putting dry aluminium to dry aluminium, especially not on an engine in a car that's sort of running 500 horsepower, which this one was. This was a tuned one. It was extremely fast. I think it was well over 500 horsepower, this one. So this engine is a fantastic engine, the S55. It's got two turbos, one for each of the three cylinders. It's got graphite coated pistons, so it's a real fancy engine. It's a beautiful engine. It goes like stink. This one had no power. Once we actually changed the Valvetronic motor, we started to uncover a bit of a can of worms, really. So then we pulled the new Valvetronic motor back off, and then we decided, or the customer decided, let's just pay, couple of grand and let's get it done right. So what I'm doing now, I'm just rotating the camshaft just to get some lubrication on it, just to make sure that there's no dry spots, really, because this is an high performance engine. It's not an N47. I'm not going to slap it together left, right and centre. Just thought I'd speed this bit up for you now, because it's be a little bit boring otherwise, essentially. So what I'm doing is I'm putting the side mounted camshaft carrier caps on there, and when they are all sort of where they need to be, I'm then going to torque them down with my little mini Worth torque wrench, because there is specific torque settings. And crucially, what I will do after that is I will obviously rotate the cam when the caps are all sort of torqued up to spec to make sure there's no tight spots. Because obviously it's a Valvetronic motor, isn't it? So I can rotate the cam all day long. I'm not going to be touching any valves, because that's what our eccentric shaft's for, which we're going to put in after once I've torqued all the camshaft carrier caps up, essentially. And as I said, this was a 5-year-old job, and I'd only been working for Schmid for a few months when this job rolled through the doors. So it was quite exciting to be given such a big job. I mean, I'd done jobs like this before at Larkinen, which is a big BMW dealer that I used to work for. It's now Heading Automotive. So I worked for them, and Delta Bavaria before that, which sort of turned into Larkinen when they bought it. So I've got a lot of experience with high-performance engines anyway, so this wasn't anything new to me. And like everything, as you can see, I mark it up, I paint everything up, I torque everything up. Slow and steady, I don't rush, I just make sure the job's done right. So that's our intake cam done. And I'm going to give it a little rotate. Oh, it's lovely and smooth, look at that. No problems at all. Everything's tickety-boo and right as ninepence. So what's next? Well, next thing we need to feed our eccentric shaft in. And there's a few procedures which you're going to see me do. If you've never done one of these before and you're doing one, this will sort of carry over to other non-S55 engines. Even, I think, the N20, for example, has a similar Valvetronic motor. So if you can do it on this, you'll do it on them. So there's a lot of good stuff on this particular short video that could carry over next time you do get something like similar to this. So there's the eccentric shaft. It only goes in one way. You notice the quadrant in the middle. These are on needle roller bearings. The quadrant in the middle is the bit where the Valvetronic motor meshes to with the worm gear. And there's a very specific way of meshing that in, as you'll see later on. We use a little Allen key or an Allen hex tool to do that. Incidentally, this job, I think I did it in one day, and then we kept it for a couple of days to road test it, essentially, just to make sure everything was okay, really. Yeah, it's a shame there's no sound, unfortunately, but YouTube will just have me for copyright reasons. That's why I'm sat here at 9:30 in the evening thinking of things to say. as I'm looking back at it on a tiny mobile phone screen because I'm not using my normal microphone. There you are. I thought I'd rattle through that nice and fast for you. So eccentric shaft's bolted up there, and you can see what I'm doing there now is I'm just essentially making sure everything is like, where it needs to be kind of thing, because we don't want anything coming loose when the guy's blatting it on the motorway, which is 500 horsepower. By the way, this one, and if you're not familiar with these engines, this one, we installed a crank hub. Someone else installed a crank hub on it, I think, before he got the car. I don't think it was us, actually. And there's two types of crank hubs on these, because the biggest flaw on this engine is the crank hubs are crap. Like all BMWs, they're floating engines. There's no keyways on them. And on this, they do come loose and they end up smashing the valves. So the only way around that is you take the hub, you can either drill it, put a dowel jig on and put 4 dowels in and dowel it. So you can dowel it to the crankshaft, so then it doesn't slip. But the better one is from America. They have these fantastic ones where you just put a spline on, really, in that sense. So if you've got one of these, make sure you key your hub, otherwise you're going to be smashing the engine up. So what am I doing? That's RVS. It's €400 a pop for that little spray. That little container is €400, that pump bottle. It's very expensive, but it's the best stuff in the world. It's a ceramic coating, and I'm putting it on the teeth of the eccentric shaft. You can put lithium grease on as well for long-term use, but this RVS, really, nano treatment, seems to coat it very well. But RVS you can use in the engine oil to protect the entire engine. In fact, this RVS stuff can get rid of rust on camshafts. You'd be quite amazed how good it is. So that's what I'm using there. We'd kind of run out, so didn't have the luxury of the pump bottle. And what I'm doing there is I'm turning the Valvetronic eccentric shaft manually, because we've not got a motor there, obviously. And I'm doing that just to access everything and make sure everything's lubricated, really. We don't want any bits that are not lubricated. As I said, it is a high-performance engine after all, at the end of the day. And what I'm doing there, when I've got that special tool, that's actually what we're going to do later when we mesh it all, we mesh the motor into it later on. We're going to use that to put it in the initial setting position, essentially. You have to be very careful with this. It's spring-loaded, so you don't want to be you want to be really careful. You don't want the thing to be kind of like spinning back on its own and dropping. It could damage it. So you can see the quadrant, and that's essentially how the variable valve lift works on these engines. The motor just spins that as my hand's doing it, but of course the motor does it. So these are the central spark plug turrets, if you want to call them that. Bit of a faff. Throw these new gaskets on, and obviously you don't want them leaking engine oil, so always replace the gaskets on them. And then after this, it's just a case of sort of whacking the sprockets on, really, if you like. But before that, there's a few more little bits and bats I thought I'd have to do with it. There we are. There's the old rollers. There's different terminology for them, isn't there? But basically, they're just the rollers, what the camshaft, so the eccentric shaft presses down to advance and retard the timing. And there's the caps. This special tool is very important, and I've seen some people not do it. I think I might have not used it in past myself on the odd job, but on this, you can't mess around, so I made sure that we actually had that tool before I started this job. I think we ordered it. What it is, it's the spring blocks which I'm bolting down. This tool just essentially aligns the spring block perfectly, because that they call it a spring block, because that's what the Valvetronic return spring is going to sit on top. So it's very crucial, actually, that you keep them in order, and then when you do put them on, that you make sure that tool lines them perfectly to the receptacle underneath, and there's no ambiguity then. It's like all about precision with these type of jobs, really. It might seem overkill, like it's a lot of these backstreet garages and stuff, but there's a reason why 5 years ago I did this car, and it never ever came back for anything other than the oil services. It's never ever had a fault since I did this. 5 years later, it's still working. So, in fact, I saw this car a couple of months back, actually, at Christmas time-ish, on the road, on the street, because I remember the registration plate, and he was ragging it around everywhere. There's nothing wrong with it, it's perfect, because I took my time, and everything was done carefully and methodically. And that's the only bit of advice I can give anyone in this trade. If you're starting out doing more high-performance stuff, don't worry about it. It's only an engine, don't be scared of it, but just take your time and read and learn and talk everything and double-check and paint everything. job done, innit, when you just do it at such a good pace like that. Right, where else are we? What are we doing now? Bear in mind, I'm looking at this as I'm making this voice recording. I've not bloody looked at this. It was on my computer at work for years, this, as bits of files, and I downloaded them all and I started assembling them at home about a month ago, and I've just been doing bit by bit, and I thought, you know what, let's just get it out there. You know, it's still a video at the end of the day, innit? So yeah, I'm just talking the rest of them caps up now. Then after that, we'll put the return spring on. You'll like that because I've got another big fancy special tool, which probably if you've not done one of these engines before, you'll probably not know about this tool. It's like a big pair of pliers, essentially. Spring compressor tool. It's pretty funky. So yeah, let's speed that up. We don't want to watch me messing around at slow motion, do we? When when the spring caps are all on now, we can then start assembling there's our return spring. I don't think you'd ever get them on without this tool. It would be difficult, let's say. A bit of a pain, these, actually, because you've got to slot the little fingers in to the followers. Not the followers, sorry, yeah, I thought we could call them valve followers, can't we? I think we can call them that. There's probably a specific BMW terminology, but basically the little fingers with the rollers, which end up sort of pushing the hydraulic lifters down. So we need obviously the return spring system on the Valvetronic. Without that, it won't return. So that's why, and it's a hell of a strong spring. So that's why we need such a heavy duty tool. Bit of a faff, but once you get them, there's a sweet spot. I can't really teach you that. You'd have to just do it yourself. And when it's locked, there's a ratchet, it just locks it. It's nice. It's nice and loose. And you can just put your bolt in and bolt it down and let the tool go, and it's all done. It's as simple as that. And after, what I like to do, I can't remember whether they did it in this video or not. I like to get a bore cam, a little bore scope, and just look at them all. Make sure the fingers are touching. Make sure everything is where it needs to be. Like these, make sure that the followers are kind of like centered, and the touching everything, the valve lifters and the followers are all like lined up, because if one is slightly misaligned and you start it, it's going to destroy the engine, innit? And it can happen with these if you're not careful. Something might be slightly out of alignment, Just put a little screwdriver outside of them, just give them a bit of a wiggle, and it's not rough. Just put a little screwdriver in and give them a wiggle. You'll see me do that in a minute, I think, if I can remember rightly. Yeah, there. So you just put a screwdriver, just give them a little wiggle. Those followers, just make sure that they're centralised, and if they're not, they'll just pop in nice with a screwdriver. You're doing it gently, you're not prying or anything, you're not going to damage anything, so don't worry about that. So when all that was done, pretty much that top end built up, all I need to do then was put the camshaft, the VANOS sprocket back on the intake, and make sure it was timed up in that sense. Now, sorry, I didn't actually, for some reason, God knows why, I didn't do a video of the engine running after, which is a bloody shame, because it had a full straight through exhaust without cats and everything. This thing, it was a right beast. So this is coming to the end of the video now, and basically all I'm doing is I'm just angle tightening the new bolt for the VANOS sprocket, and that's it. That is basically a top end rebuild on an S55, and I just thought, well, 5-year-old video, bits of clips here and there. There's no point it sat on my computer. I might as well whack it on. It might be some use to someone. Who knows? It might be of some use. I do look a bit different there, don't I? I had more hair 5 years ago in 2020. So I hope you enjoyed that video anyway. Sorry it's not like a perfect video, but I think there's a lot of good stuff on there if you've never done one and you're going to do one. It might give you a bit of a pointer, a bit of an heads up how to use like those Valvetronic tools and stuff like that. Fantastic. I've been getting a lot of new subscribers lately, and I've not been doing so many videos because I've had a lot of stuff going on at home and that, I'm busy with kid and everything. So I really appreciate that. It's fantastic. But there is other videos in the pipeline. I've got a couple of things I need to do some product testing videos on in the next couple of days. A solo scan King Bolen, and also a jump pack from Top Done. So they're going to be coming soon. But if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing, because it's building up now pretty fast, and I do want to get the channel more well known. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm sorry it didn't show the engine running. See you soon.